Hi everyone and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you're new to my channel. Either way, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It would really help me out. So we're going to continue with the Leprechaun franchise since we're in the middle of March now. Happy St. Patrick's Day, a little early to everybody. So today we're going to take a look at what I was told was the dreaded fourth film, Leprechaun in Space movie from 1997, which again, like the first three and the next two, are part of the 7-pack Blu-ray pack here. So today we're taking a look at this one right here, Leprechaun 4 in Space from 1997. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So Leprechaun 4 in Space is a 1997 American science fiction comedy horror film directed by Brian Trenchard Smith and written by Dennis Pratt. Warwick Davis stars as the titular leprechaun who terrorizes a marine crew aboard a spaceship in order to retrieve a princess he intends to wed. So he's back into trying to find his bride-to-be, if you will. In 2096, on a remote planet, the leprechaun courts an alien princess named Zarina in a nefarious plot to become king of her home planet. The two agree to marry, with each partner secretly planning to kill the other after the wedding night in order to enjoy the marriage benefits, a peerage for the leprechaun's gold jewels for the princess. Undisturbed. Marriage benefits undisturbed. I don't quite know the wording of that. They're planning to kill the other after the wedding night in order to enjoy the marriage benefits undisturbed. A platoon of space marines arrive on the planet and kill the leprechaun for interfering with mining operations. Lucky tries to steal gold but gets killed by the leprechaun's lightsaber. You heard that right, lightsaber. A grenade explodes and kills the leprechaun. Gloating over the victory, one of the Marines, Kowalski, urinates on the leprechaun's body. Unbeknownst to Kowalski, the leprechaun's spirit travels up his urine stream and into his penis, where his presence manifests. The Marines return to their ship with the injured Zarina, whom they plan to return to her home world in order to establish positive diplomatic relations. Whew. As far as the cast goes, we have Warwick Davis as Lubden the Leprechaun, Rebecca Carlton as Princess Zarina, Brent Jasmer as Staff Sergeant Brooks Malloy, Jessica Collins as Dr. Tina Reeves, Guy Sinner as Dr. Mittenhand, the Mitten Spider, Gary Grossman as Harold, Joseph Slavin as Captain Snake Marcus, Tim Colsuri as Master Sergeant Hooker, Miguel A. Nunes Jr. as Private Styx, and Debbie Dunning as Private Dolores Costello. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for Leprechaun 4 in Space from 1997. Whoops. Right there. I'm getting my Leprechaun movies confused. Leprechaun 4 in Space from 1997. Let's see. What can I say? This is not a good movie, although I find it funny that everybody that follows this franchise, this is basically the worst movie ever made, according to a lot of people. And it's not a good movie. I'm going to sound like I'm trying to defend it on some level here. I'm really not. There's so much that's bad about this movie that I'll get into in my cons. That being said, it's not like the three movies before this were that substantially better than this one. I think this one kind of fits into the series, let's put it that way, without being overly ridiculous, without being overly terrible as compared to the movies I've already seen. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But let's go ahead and get into what I liked about Leprechaun 4 in Space. Again, Warwick Davis. I say it in every movie up to this point, and I'm going to say it again. I enjoy that character. I think he's become recognized. I recognize him as the titular character or villain of Leprechaun at this point. He just owns that. He just owns that role, and he's charming and great in this movie, in my opinion, with his one-liners, with his dialogue. It's not quite as strong as some of the previous movies. I'll say that, because I don't think the writing or directing is quite as strong. Not to say that it was great in the first three movies, but I think it is a bit of a step down here. But I still think Warwick Davis is great, and even though they take some big swings and misses with his character in this movie, I still think Warwick Davis is awesome as that character, and he doesn't. I don't think he falls off the grid that much in this movie. I didn't mind some of the characters in this movie, which is a real switch from the last couple movies. Now, not all of them. The majority of them are still really bad, both in terms of writing and acting. But it's basically the three surviving Marine characters that I like. And I think they're decent in their acting. Not great, but again, low bar in this series. I think their likability is a little bit better, at least for me. Those three main characters are basically Brooks, Sticks, and Dr. Tina Reeves. Those are the three that I'm talking about. Everybody else outside of Warwick Davis, but those three I didn't mind as much for that low bar that's set in this series. Compared to the last three movies, and plus Dr. Tina Reeves is very easy on the eyes, played by Jessica Collins, so I haven't really seen her in anything else, but my God, is she gorgeous. This movie, and the series for that matters, knows what it is. It doesn't try to be something it's not, and in this movie it throws as much against the wall as it possibly can, and I appreciate that. I mean, once you've gotten to the point where you're in space, you might as well go full balls to the walls crazy and try to throw as much as you can, and they do in this movie. They really do. And like I said, I think given this character or villain of the Leprechaun and the overall silly dumb tone of these movies, it works on some level. I think this movie works better than Jason X on some level, or Hellraiser in Space on some level, because the premises of those movies don't start out quite as ridiculous and absurd. Of course, there's always absurdity to them, but those are a little bit more grounded. I don't want to say grounded in reality. When you have a hockey mask killer who just keeps coming back from the dead. But you know what I'm saying. This series started out being ridiculous, and it just kind of carries through to this movie, and I think it works a little bit better, at least for me on some level. So, like I said, I appreciate they know what they are. They throw as much as they can against the wall. They basically went into this movie saying, okay, we're going to set Leprechaun in space. Let's just go balls to the walls and be as ridiculous as we absolutely can be. And they do that. And does it work? Not really. Very few things work, but they take the big swing. I think that's the point. They don't try to play it too seriously. And my final pro, and I'm scraping, I know, but I really didn't hate the fact that Debbie Dunning, being a soldier, was in this movie. Nice. That's probably one of the positives about the three actresses in this movie. Rebecca Carlton, who plays Princess Zarina, Jessica Collins, who plays Dr. Tina Reeves, and Debbie Dunning, who plays Private Dolores Costello. Those three being in the film are enough for me to check this out again, because they're all extremely easy on the eyes, even though the acting's not there by all three of them by any stretch of the imagination, but they're very easy to look at. So those are my pros for Leprechaun 4 in space. As far as cons go, you got to start with the absurdity of the story. It's obviously ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. We are just in space in the future with these characters, and basically stop asking questions and just enjoy the absurdity and the so dumb it's fun kind of aspect that this movie has. Nothing's going to make sense. Nothing does make sense. Don't expect it to make sense. Nothing's really made sense in this series thus far, though. The effects are probably the silliest and worst in the entire series to this point. Not very well done for the most part, especially the gore and kill effects. The kills are non-bloody, non-gory. They're just more over-the-top silliness. The side characters outside of the three that I mentioned and the Leprechaun are caricatures. You know, they're really annoying, really badly acted and written. They're what they've been in this entire series so far, with the exception of like 4 or 5 different characters outside the Leprechaun. The set designs and the directing are pretty bad in this movie. I didn't think the movie was directed. It's certainly not well written. The set designs, the biggest problem that this movie has is it kind of makes somewhat of a parallel to a much more successful and a much better in space movie, and that, of course, is Aliens from 1986, where you also have a Marine Corps that goes in and is trying to take out an alien in that case. In this case, it's trying to take out Leprechaun. So, right there, people are automatically going to compare the two, and there is no comparison. Aliens from 1986 is one of the great in space horror action movies of all time. And this doesn't even come in the same stratosphere, no pun intended, because the set designs, as I said, the effects are bad, the budget is low, it's a B slasher horror movie, sci-fi movie in space. The visual effects are god awful in this movie. They're just terrible. Anytime it shows anything in space, like the spaceships moving or anything like that, it's beyond atrocious. And the CGI is some of the worst that you'll ever see in a movie. It's laughably bad, and not in a good, so bad it's good kind of way. It's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. Again, low budget, B slasher space movie. We get all that. So, again, this is not a good movie, guys. I don't want you to get me wrong here. I guess more of the point that I'm trying to make is the whole series has not had a great movie in it. And yes, this is probably the most ridiculous on some level because of the setting of it, because it is basically a caricature, a parody, much like Chucky would become and Freddy would become in their respective series. It is a caricature, but again, I can't stress this enough. This series never starts out in a non-parody, non-ridiculous way, at least in my opinion. So to me, this is just like the other three movies, with some more ridiculousness for sure, being in space, worse effects, nondescript kills that don't do anything for me, no blood or gore, terrible visual effects with a low budget and bad characters. But at the same time, it just kind of fits in with the series. I'm sorry if you hate this movie with a passion, but for me it just does. I don't see the big drop off that a lot of people are talking about. But overall, will I reach for this movie if I'm in the mood for a Leprechaun movie, a so bad it's good kind of movie like these movies are? Probably not. I'll probably reach for one of the earlier movies. But with that being said, Leprechaun 4 in space, I'm going to still give it a 6 out of 10 because it's such a low bar in this series. 6 out of 10 for Leprechaun 4 in space. It's not a good movie, but it does fit in with the rest of this series. It doesn't take a turn the way that, Nightmare on Elm Street 5 or 6 do, the way that, why can't I think of the Chucky movie? Seed of Chucky does. Those movies I feel like really fall off a cliff with their sort of ridiculous, over-the-top movie that everybody hates in the franchise. This movie was already there. So 6 out of 10 for Leprechaun 4 in space from 1997. That's just my opinion. Maybe you hate this movie with a passion, and that's fine. You have good reason to, as I sit in my cons. But I could see, it's so ridiculous and so over the top that I can have some fun with certain scenes of the movie. Certainly not the whole movie, so don't get me wrong. But I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below your guys' thoughts about Leprechaun 4 in space from 1997. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel as I mentioned earlier, so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series, or as I get back into my 1980s horror movie series. With that being said, I hope everybody's having a good March. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying. And as always, stay scared. Bye.